Hello everybody, Realm Builder Guy here, and welcome back to the channel, and a brand new Victoria 3 Dev Diary. It is Dev Diary number 6, and today we are talking about interest groups. Yay, something we've all been looking forward to because I kind of want to know what that all means. You know, where does that fit with political parties and all that jazz? So, I have not read through this, so this will be a little bit of a reaction. Okay. Hello once again and welcome back to yet another Victoria 3 Dev Diary. Where previous Dev Diaries have been focused on the economy, we're now going to switch gears to another core pillar of the Victoria series, internal politics. More specifically, we're going to be talking about interest groups, which form the nucleus of Victoria 3's political gameplay. What then are interest groups? Well, fundamentally, an interest group is a collection of pops that espouse certain political views and want to change the country to be more in line with those views. Interest groups are drawn from a number of different templates, but will vary in their exact views from country to country, based on factors such as the local religion, which social movements have appeared in the country, or the personal views of their leader. Makes sense. I like that it's a dynamic interest group and it's not static across the board. The landowners, let's see here. Landowners is an interest group dominated by the aristocracy and tends to be firmly in the conservative side of politics. All right, so landowners. So you can either suppress, join, remove, or promote them in your government. This shows the ideologies, the clout. So maybe that's how much political influence they have. Traits associated with the approval. It's neutral. It's going up. Leader is Friedrich August von Giese. These are his traits. Population, about 9.7 thousand are them. And it is comprised of aristocrats and clergymen, middling and prosperous. Very, very interesting. As mentioned, interest groups are fundamentally made of pops. All individuals in all pops are either members of an interest group or politically inactive, with the ratio in each based on factors such as profession, wealth, literacy, etc. And that makes sense because even in today's highly politicized world, there's still a huge percentage of the population that honestly just doesn't care that much. They may vote, but they just don't care that much. Whereas other people, myself included, are more, interested in politics, gluttons for punishment, whatever you want to call us. Okay, individuals inside pops contribute political strength to their interest group of choice, with the amount they contribute again dependent on multiple factors, the main ones being their material wealth and status and or votes. They are offered under the nation's power structure. For example, a single wealthy aristocrat in an oligarchy will provide hundreds or even 1,000 times the political strength of a poor laborer. Makes sense. The total political strength of all pops in an interest group is what gives it its level of clout. The amount of political weight it can assert on the country and the government. It's important to note, though, that pops are not unified in which interest groups they support. Individuals within pops are the ones who decide their interest group, and a single pop can potentially have individuals supporting every interest group in the game in different numbers. Now, again, pop is not an individual. It's a portion of population. So there are individuals within a pop group. That makes sense. Some pops have no political strength at all, usually due to being disenfranchised under the nation's laws, such as people of a religion or culture that is discriminated against, or women in countries that haven't instituted women's suffrage, etc. These pops are outside the system, so to speak, unable to demand reform through the regular political system of interest groups, and instead having to rely on other methods to put pressure on the government. But we won't focus on those today. I'm assuming this is where, those wonderful Jacobin revolts in Victoria 2 come in. Individual members of a pop can support different interest groups, or stay out of politics altogether. Let's take a look at this one. We're in Svealand, Swedish, Protestant, status growth, literacy rate, very good, standard of living, okay. Interest group. This pop primary interest group is industrialists. So what are we looking at? Radicals, loyalists. Interest group membership. 756 pops are part of the industrialists. 402 are petite bourgeoisie. 165 are part of the intelligentsia, 58 are the Church of Sweden, 119 are politically inactive, 3,490, are disenfranchised dependents. So, yeah, there you can see how that's made up. As mentioned above, interest groups have a number of ideologies which determine their views on which laws the country should or should not enact. Different interest groups will have different ideologies. The landowners are significantly more conservative than the trade unions, for example. Shocking, I know. But these are not entirely set in stone. They can change over the course of the game and will also vary based on the current leader of the interest group, who comes with his or her own personal ideology and view of the world. And again, that makes sense. I mean, a political party or anything like that, or a trade union, the Teamsters were different pre and post Jimmy Hoffa versus when Hoffa was in there. That's an interest group, as an example. Additionally, some interest groups in certain countries have unique ideologies colored by their religion and culture, such as the Confucian Scholars Interest Group in Qing, China, who, unsurprisingly, espouse a Confucian ideology. Shocking. Interest groups will generally favor laws that benefit them in some way. Okay, so we've got Anglican Church, pious ideology, stance on church and state, strongly disapproves of total separation, neutral to freedom of conscience, strongly approve of state religion, of course. Education system disapproves of public schools and private schools, neutral on no schools, approves religious schools, pro-state religion. Right-click to open context menu. I mentioned previously that interest groups have a level of clout based on the total political strength of their constituent pops. Clout is calculated by comparing their political strength to that of the other interest groups in the country. If all the interest groups in Belgium put together have 100,000 political strength, and the landowners have 30,000, they correspondingly get 30% of the clout in Belgium. The interest group's clout will determine their classification: powerful, influential, or marginalized. Interest groups also have a level of approval, which is based on factors such as how much they approve of the country's laws, whether they are in government or in opposition, how many of their individual members are loyalists or radicals. More on those in later Dev Diary. Again, radicals, we talked about that just previously, just a couple of moments ago. There are numerous other factors that can affect approval as well, such as how you react to certain events or decisions that you take. Together, the classification and approval of an interest group determines which traits are active for an interest group at any given time and how impactful they are. There are different traits, positive and negative, with positive traits being activated when an interest group is happy and negative ones when they're not. Makes sense. So, if an interest group is powerful, the effects of any traits they have active, good or bad, are stronger, while an interest group that is marginalized cannot activate traits at all, as they are too weak to exert an effect on the whole country. Again, this is a very logical system. I like that it is logical. It hurts metaplay to a degree, maybe. I think you can roleplay your nations pretty nicely with this system, but also then through laws and so on, and say you want to go from a monarchy in 1836 to transition to a socialist republic. By the end of the game, you just have to move it along accordingly and promote those interest groups and pops. Traits are, of course, not the only way that interest groups can affect a country, and it's even possible for one or several angry interest groups to start a civil war, potentially bringing in foreign countries to support them. Keep the aristocracy happy, and they'll be more willing to reinvest their hard-earned money into the country. Noblesse oblige. Inactive, 20% aristocrats investment pool contribution. Since this interest group is powerful, their interest group traits have a 100% stronger effect. So, approval of Junkers is at least loyal. Junkers is not marginalized. Okay. Now we're at the end. Now something that's been a hotly debated topic in the community in regards to interest groups is political parties, and whether they'll be a part of Victoria 3. So I want to briefly touch on this. Very big, as the dog barks in the background. What I can tell you for now is that we are currently looking into a solution where parties can form in certain countries as constellations of interest groups holding a shared political platform. Okay? So what this basically means that they were not necessarily planning on putting in political parties. What this also means is that during their testing that they're putting in now, this is a strong assumption that if this doesn't work, they'll just let political parties, they'll drop it for now and maybe bring it later as a DLC or an expansion or something like that. But interest groups is a core. They will not upset interest groups for the sake of political parties. Okay. This is something that's by no means fully nailed down at this point, though, so don't take this as 100% firm commitment to how they would function. What I can tell you for sure is that we will come back to this particular topic later. Of course, they're not going to touch on it now because they don't know. And they've said so much also on Twitter, the developers, that this is something they're looking at, but they won't sacrifice interest groups for the sake of political parties. That's obviously going to be something of interest. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. Do you prefer interest groups, political parties? Obviously, I think we'd all love to see if they can mesh them. What are your thoughts on the fact that they focus so much on interest groups and political parties are basically an afterthought that they can maybe add on? I think the interest groups, especially, let's say, in the in most countries, say the first half to about mid-game in this time period, in this 100 years, makes sense to focus on interest groups over political parties. There were political parties, of course. Look at the United States at this time. But many countries just had interest groups. Look at Prussia or Germany. The political parties only started forming then in many, many countries later in the 19th century. So I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are. Okay, so that's all for today, though we'll certainly be coming back to the subject of interest groups and looking at the different types you will encounter in later Dev Diaries. With July and summer vacations coming up, we're going to take a short break from Dev Diaries, but we'll be back on July 22nd. So right now it is July 1st, so 3 weeks, no Dev Diaries here. With July 22nd, as Michael returns to continue talking about politics in Victoria 3 and the subject of laws. All right, so now we have it. 3 weeks are going to be no Dev Diaries. I also assume there's not going to be any Crusader Kings 3 Dev Diaries. I didn't cover the last CK3 Dev Diary because custom colors, woo! That's not worth my time to cover. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on interest groups. I find it very fascinating. I think, like I outlined, it makes sense, especially through the first, say, 2/3 of the time period that's being covered in Victoria 3, to focus on interest groups over political parties. But then eventually, I think political parties do need to be instituted. I would like them to be instituted immediately if I'm going to play as the United States of America. I have interest groups and I have political parties, and I will play as the United States of America. There's no question about that in Victoria 3 at some point, maybe even right off the bat, to kind of test interest groups versus political parties. Probably the best country to do that as initially. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, as it really helps the channel and these videos, because Victoria 3 is going to be a mainstay here on the channel moving forward. And I may, even though they're not going to have any Dev Diaries for the next 3 weeks, I've got a few things that I kind of want to do, like a summary video or something like that about economics and just what we know so far. But I haven't quite decided on that. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Hit the like button. I'm Realm Builder Guy, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.